As we all know, 200 some years, water has always been the problem. Well, now we're encountering it ourselves, and we have to devise a way to shut it down or at least diminish it. The bottom of the garden shaft could be incredibly important to solving the mystery. It needs to be dealt with.
A mind-blowing discovery in the waters bordering Oak Island Swamp has just shown evidence of very skilled workers from ages ago. Amazing old objects and talk of a hidden dam nearby whispered of incredible, ancient things. Is it possible that the swamp itself isn't natural, but a giant man-made trap guarding something unbelievable? Tune in, because what they uncovered is the definitive sign that the real danger has just begun. The Northern Approach. The northern edge of Oak Island's well-known swamp, where the island meets the restless Atlantic Ocean, had always been a place of much talk and many theories. For a long time, the Oak Island team had mostly looked at spots on land, like the Money Pit, Smith's Cove, and the inner parts of the swamp. But now a new search was starting. Marty Lagina and Jack Begley, younger members of the search group, headed into the shallow waters with Tony Sampson, a skilled diver, and Ken DeBoer, an expert in underwater cameras. Their search was based on strong clues from the past. Fred Nolan, a famous Oak Island searcher from years ago, had said for many years that he saw signs of a man-made structure right along this part of the coast. His idea seemed to match up with a strange map that another researcher, Zena Halpern, had talked about. The team was looking for signs of a dam. Such a wall could have been important in making the swamp, or it might have been built for a totally different reason that no one yet understood. It was a serious clue that could change what they thought about the island.
Is a concentration of artifacts underwater. It might be enough to get some kind of a permit to do further investigation here. That's
You're
what
right.
I'm thinking.
This part of the search felt different, a step into a watery unknown that held great promise. What they might uncover could shift their entire understanding of the island's timeline. The area where they were working had an interesting underwater landscape. Ken DeBoer explained that the water was about 7 to 8 feet deep near the shore, but it dropped down to around 25 feet as they went further out. This information was very important because, as Alex noted, if they looked far back in time, the sea level would have been much lower. This meant that places now covered by water could have been dry land long ago. People could have built things or worked on this land. The idea that a large structure might be perfectly kept under the waves, just waiting to be found, felt very real and exciting to the team. Tony Sampson was very eager to get into the water and see the seabed for himself. Alex and Jack felt the same excitement as they prepared to watch his work and the camera feed from the ROV on the boat. Their main goal was clear: to look carefully at the area and use their tools to see through the water that had hidden these possible things for so many years. The thought that Fred Nolan might have been right all along added to their drive. They were not just looking for objects, they were looking for proof of a lost chapter in Oak Island's story. This dive was more than just another search. It felt like they were on the edge of a major breakthrough. Ken DeBoer was in charge of using a special underwater robot called an ROV to help guide the search. This piece of advanced equipment was connected to the boat by a long cable and had its own small motors and a high-quality camera. It would act like a second set of eyes for the team on the boat.
And get my eyes on it. Your eyes will be on it with the ROV up here.
Great.
So we need to get the ROV in the water.
The ROV would help them see the area clearly and also guide Tony Sampson to any interesting spots that he might miss in the sometimes cloudy water. Ken explained their plan. They would search in a grid pattern, moving the ROV back and forth over the target spot to make sure they covered everything. Good communication between the team on the boat and Tony in the water would be key to making this careful underwater search work well. As Tony Sampson put on his diving suit and gear, ready to go into the water, everyone felt a strong sense of anticipation. He was not just going into the cold Atlantic. He was going into a piece of history that might have been hidden and untouched for hundreds, maybe even thousands of years. The weight of the island's long questions seemed to press down, yet the hope of discovery lifted their spirits. What things lay preserved in the cold, dark water just waiting to be revealed? Stirrings in the silt. Once Tony Sampson was under the water and had reached the sea bottom, the real underwater search began. The first thing he did was to sweep the area with his handheld metal detector. This tool was designed to find any metal objects that might be hidden under the sand, silt, or seaweed. On the boat, the team watched the video screens closely. They could see through Tony's helmet camera and the ROV's camera. Their own eyes searched for any clues of man-made objects, like straight lines or strange shapes that would look different from natural rocks or formations. The team on the surface reminded Tony to tell them if he saw any signs of a structure or anything else that looked unusual. Every movement, every signal from the metal detector was watched with keen interest. The quiet hum of the equipment on the boat was the only sound, mixing with the gentle rock of the waves as they all waited. The seabed below was a landscape of shadows and muted colors, a place that had held its questions for a very long time. They knew that finding anything significant here could open up a whole new part of the Oak Island problem. The pressure was on, but so was the excitement of the hunt. It did not take long before Tony's actions showed he had found something worth looking at.
All right, there you go. Wow.
The team saw him gently waving his hand over the seabed, fanning the loose sediment away from an object. This was a careful way to see what was hidden without disturbing it too much. Marty Lagina reminded everyone about the important rule they had to follow. Fanning was okay, but they were not allowed to dig. The laws for underwater searching are very strict. They stop people from removing or bothering old artifacts without special permission. This meant that even if Tony found clues or valuable items, he could only look at them and record them. To dig them up or take them out of the water, the team would have to ask the government for a special permit. This careful way of doing things, while sometimes slow for eager searchers, makes sure that old sites are treated with care and studied properly. It was a reminder that they were not just treasure hunters, but also caretakers of history. Every decision had to be made with this in mind, balancing the thrill of discovery with the need to preserve the past. The underwater world demanded patience and respect. Soon, Tony's voice came over the radio telling the team he could see what looked like hand-carved wood. Alex immediately understood how important this kind of find could be. Thinking about Zena Halpern's map and the ideas about an old dam, he knew that finding worked wood in this spot, right where the swamp met the ocean, could be a strong sign that people had been busy here. It might mean they were building something or doing work that needed shaped wood. Tony said the piece was about a foot long and it looked like it could be a small piece of a plank. To some people, one piece of wood might not seem like much, but on Oak Island, every little piece is looked at very closely for clues about the bigger question. So this was a very good start. The team on the boat noted his report and told him to keep them updated as he kept searching, moving slowly and carefully across the seabed. This single piece of wood preserved by the cold water could be a silent witness from a forgotten time. It whispered of tools and hands that had shaped it long ago for a purpose they could only guess at. The search for more clues continued with renewed focus. As Tony Sampson kept looking, his eyes caught something near a group of boulders. He moved closer, carefully checking the area around these underwater rocks. Then his voice came over the comms again, this time with more excitement. He told them he had found pieces of pottery and some of them had blue marks on them. He even said something that sounded like sailor truck, which might have been his way of describing a known pattern on old pottery, perhaps like sailor-struck designs often seen on historic pieces. This discovery made Marty Lagina think right away about other finds. He remembered that they had found quite a bit of pottery recently on Lot 5, another search area on the island. So the big question came up. Could this underwater pottery be like the pottery found on land? Some of the items from Lot 5 were thought to be from as early as the 17th century. This was a time when many ships were sailing, new lands were being settled, and pirates were active. Finding similar pottery here would be a strong link. This wasn't just old trash, it was a clue to the people who had been here before. The discovery of pottery in this underwater place brought up several interesting ideas. Alex thought about how it could have gotten there. One idea was that the rocks, with their nooks and crannies, had acted like a natural trap.
One is that the rocks have trapped this stuff here, and the other is that it's sort of a deposit. There's got to be a source for these things.
Over many years, pieces of pottery could have washed into this spot and gotten stuck. Or, he thought, maybe it was a place where people had deliberately left these things. Perhaps it was an old trash pile, or even a place where items were left for some special reason. No matter how they got there, the main question was still the same. Where did these items come from? For pottery and cut wood to be there, people must have been nearby, or there must have been some direct link to human activity in that spot. The team told Tony to look very carefully around the boulder. They hoped to find out if there were more artifacts, which could tell them if it was a small, scattered find or a larger collection. Each piece could tell a part of a story. They just needed to find enough pieces to put that story together. What else might these old rocks be hiding? The careful search around the boulder paid off. Tony soon called in another important find, something that made the team on the boat very excited. He described a metal object that had a hole in the middle. His very first thought, he told them, was that it looked like a coin, maybe one of those old Chinese-style coins that often have a square or round hole in the center. This was a discovery that could be huge. Just saying Chinese coin on Oak Island made everyone think of an amazing find from before. In the year 2020, while Jack Begley was searching with Gary Drayton, the metal detecting expert, on Lot 15, an area between the swamp and the money pit, they found a coin. An expert on old coins, Sandy Campbell, later said this coin was Chinese and, incredibly, more than 1,000 years old. The idea that such an old coin could be on Oak Island was amazing. It suggested that people might have come across the ocean long before Columbus, changing what we know about North American history. The air on the boat crackled with anticipation. Could history be about to repeat itself with another such coin? A coin of intrigue and a path forward. The idea that Tony Sampson might have found another coin like that one, this time in the water just north of the swamp, was almost too exciting to believe. If this new object really was an old Chinese coin, it would be very strong proof for the theories about ancient sailors making long voyages across the ocean. It could also connect to the question of how the Oak Island swamp itself was made. Some people think the swamp was made by people, maybe as long as 700 years ago, to hide something very valuable. Could old objects like ancient coins be linked to the people who did such a big building project? The discovery sent a wave of energy through the team. This was the kind of find that Oak Island was famous for. Something unexpected that opened up a whole world of new questions and possibilities. The small, murky object on the seabed held the potential to rewrite history books. Every person on the team understood the weight of this moment.
Copy that, Tony. We'll see you on the boat soon. Over.
All right. I'd say that was a successful dive.
Very.
For Alex Lagina, finding these things one after another, the hand-cut wood, the pottery with blue marks, and now, most excitingly, the possible coin, was changing how he saw this area. He said that while the pottery had made him excited, finding what looked like pipe stems, another common type of old object, and now maybe even a coin made him feel even more thrilled. What was becoming very clear, he said, was that they had found a place underwater where many old objects were gathered together. Finding one lost item can sometimes just be luck, but finding many different kinds of old things in one spot usually means that people were living or working there for a long time, or that something specific happened there. The quiet waters north of the swamp were suddenly looking like a hotspot for ancient activity. Alex's mind raced with the implications. This wasn't just a random scatter, it felt like a real site. The biggest problem now, however, was the rules. The object that looked like a coin, just like the pottery and wood found earlier, had to stay on the sea bottom. The team could not bring it up until they showed their proof to the government and got a special permit. Only then could they hope to take these items out, clean them, and study them closely. This would take time and a lot of patience, but the possible knowledge they could gain was huge. Alex felt hopeful. He thought that because they had found so many items and because they were so interesting, they would likely get the permit. This would let them look more closely at what he called a deposit. He believed that understanding why these things were there could be directly connected to proving Fred Nolan's ideas about a man-made wall or dam at the north end of the swamp, which might now be underwater. The finds were certainly amazing, and everyone agreed that this spot needed a lot more searching. Tony Sampson's dive, which started as a search in a new area, had found things that could truly change how they looked at the island's past. The information these artifacts held could be priceless. The things found underwater north of the swamp had a big impact. Not just the small team on the boat felt the excitement, but everyone involved in the Oak Island search. For many years, the swamp itself had been the main area of interest with its strange stone road, odd wooden structures, and clues of a big fire. Now, the northern watery edge of the swamp was turning out to be a very important place. It might hold clues to how the swamp was even made and who was on Oak Island many years before the money pit was found in 1795. If they could prove there was a dam, and if the old objects, especially the possible ancient coin, were from a very early time, they would have to rethink everything. It would change their ideas about who was on Oak Island, when they were there, and what amazing things they could build. This was more than just finding old items. It was about uncovering a lost history. Even the piece of hand-carved wood, which seemed like a small find, became more important when they thought about building something big. To build a dam, especially one that could change the land enough to make or change a swamp, would need a lot of wood. This wood would have to be cut and shaped by skilled workers. Every piece of shaped wood they found could be a part of this big problem, a quiet reminder of the hard work that went into it. In the same way, the pieces of pottery with their blue marks were more than just old, broken dishes. For people who study history, pottery pieces are like clues in time. If these pieces could be clearly matched to known types like those from the 17th century found on Lot 5, it would help them build a timeline of who was doing what in and around the swamp. Finding these kinds of everyday items also suggested that people might have lived there or at least had work areas there for some time, not just visited quickly. These were the subtle signs that painted a picture of past lives. But it was the object that looked like a coin with a hole in it that brought the most thrilling ideas. The earlier find of a real ancient Chinese coin on Lot 15 by Jack Begley and Gary Drayton had already made people question the known history of the island. If Tony Sampson's find turned out to be similar, it would be more proof of a very old connection between Oak Island and faraway lands, maybe even across the Pacific Ocean. Do you think this discovery will reshape the whole investigation, or is it just another piece of the bigger problem? Tell us what you think. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more.